Okay, it's Friday. Let's get going. We'll get this done quickly. Welcome, thanks for coming. I'm actually happy that there's a good turnout. That we were a little nervous. I know a lot of the girls are missing this weekend. So the reason there's a camera and I have a microphone is we're gonna actually take snippets of this and post it, make it available for those who can't be here. The plan is fairly simple. My name's Pavel, for those who don't know me. I'm the general manager at the club. I'm gonna give you about a 25-minute explanation of what the OPDL is and what the program is at our club, and give you as much information as I think is relevant, and we'll explain the program, and then we can open up for questions at the end, yeah? We happen to have, we have Jesse here, who's our manager of operations. He'll speak a little bit to the transportation, but has a lot of information on it, and we have both of our head coaches for the boys and girls side as well. So at the end, if you have questions, I may divert you. If it's a question that's helping everybody, I'll answer it. And if it's a more specific question, you might want to address it to the targeted audience at that point. Okay? So quickly, just some news on our club. So first of all, if you didn't see on their website, we've been recently named as one of the first 39 clubs at the national level of club licensing. So Canada Soccer has now audited all their clubs in the entire country. For the first time ever, Canada actually knows which soccer clubs exist in Canada, and they've started to tier them. And so they started with the highest level of clubs, so they've named 39 as the national level. And so we're proud to be in that inaugural class. So it's big news for us, and just came down this week. So we're very proud of that. The idea there, I think, in the next few years is that all the provinces will have a type of OPDL, and there will be actually like a national culmination of these leagues, and there will be a more unified competition format. But this is kind of the first step of that. Just an update, I always get questions on the Dome. So the Dome project seemingly disappeared from the city. The information we get on the inside is that it is still in progress, and they are still planning, hopefully if all the stars align, to start construction on a dome at Millennium next year. Won't be ready for this winter for sure, but the idea is that it would start being constructed in the spring for the fall winter of 2020. That's the latest information I have, but I mean, until I see them starting to pump it up, I don't know if I'll believe it. Those three are the board's new strategic updates. So every 3 years they do a brand new kind of strategic plan and come up with some priorities to work on. So I just wanted to plug you so that you know what those are. Probably the biggest one operationally to hit you guys is a major focus on a leadership pathway. So sustainable, clear pathways for players, coaches, and referees within the club to develop from grassroots kids who just want to try what it's like to kick a ball all the way through to the national team, right? So we're trying to very systematically create pathways that hopefully at the 2026 World Cup in Canada, we just might have a representation in any one of those streams, hopefully all of them. Maybe we have a player who came from here, maybe we have a referee somewhere who came from here, and maybe even a coach somewhere. So trying to clearly define those pathways, right? It's not to say that anybody can just walk it, because obviously competition's stiff and it's a challenging thing, but we'd like to make it at least clear what the steps are for everybody and give all the resources we can to get you there. Governance seems to be like always on the agenda. Given the merger of the two clubs, and really beyond that, just the rapid growth of both the club and the soccer in the province generally, we're doing steps like rewriting the entire constitution and developing brand new policies. There's a child protection policy, just things like that. So a big focus on. Terry always puts it that our operations and our club and our soccer on field has just skyrocketed in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and our governance a little bit has left behind. So we're going to try to catch those things up and make sure everything's robust, sustainable, and professional. And then financial sustainability, a lot more pertaining to trying to find alternate source of funding, so that it's not that every cent that the club needs has to come from fees, but that we build partnerships and community relations and sponsorships that help to chip away at the money that's needed to run a club as good as we want it to run. So that's high level the main three things that the board and leadership is working on in the next 3 years. So, right to it. What is the OPDL? First of all, everything I'm going to say here, if you go on the Ontario Soccer website, you go to OPDL and OPDL resources, there's a parent handbook there, which is worth reading. It's maybe 20 pages, and it's a picture book mostly, so it's not even that bad. And it gives you a lot of the information that I'm going to give you on the league itself. So if you want more, you can go there. Basic overview, Ontario Player Development League. This is standards-based league. It's the highest level of play in Ontario from ages 13 to 18. It is what they mean by standards-based is that clubs are allowed into the league based on the quality of the club that they're running, the programming, the coaching, the facilities, the sustainability, the size of the players, the quality of the grassroots programs, and things like that. So Ontario Soccer does an in-depth audit and has a painfully long list of things that you need to meet, and clubs that are able to meet that and are approved get to play in this league. The franchises are awarded on a 2-year basis, at which time they're reviewed. This is a review year, so it doesn't mean that much to us. We'll be remaining in it. But there may be a few clubs that leave, and there may be a few new clubs that come into the league. Every 2 years, that adjusts slightly. So, but for those of you who are like me, you were used to, like, you know, if you win the league, you get to promote up, and if you win that, you promote up. That's been done away with, and it's being replaced across the country with leagues like this. The idea being that the kids from age 4 to adult are, the idea is they're guaranteed to be in as good of an environment as possible to develop, and it's not so much, oh, there happens to be a good team over there somewhere and they get to go, even though the rest of the club might be a shambles, right? So I think it's trying to focus resources in clear areas so that parents, players know which clubs they should be at if they have hopes to go as far as they can in the game. I think that's obviously now getting pushed up into the Canada soccer sphere, where they're doing a national club system, and they've identified 39 clubs so far across the country, which are the pathway towards the national team. So that's the idea. We're not totally there, but you can hopefully start to understand the direction and why it is that way. It's a fairly new league, started in 2014. The 2001s are now U17s. So the first generation of OPDL players are 17 years old. Right now there's 25 teams in it, and the audited stuff I've already said. Some of the benefits, most of these I've taken straight out of the handbook. This is their words. The idea is that it is a best with best league, so 95% of their players that they're picking into the provincial screening come from OPDL. And the idea is that it's the top teams in the province, which it's, I would say, the no BS version of that is every year it gets closer to being, without a doubt, the best league. It did not probably start that way 5 years ago, but with every year it's just becoming clear that the top players are making their way into those leagues. The standards we've talked about, so there are 4 audits done on our club, for instance, every single year, in terms of what we do, what we say we do. First, we have to say what we're doing, then they audit whether we're actually doing what we say. They come out, they do a surprise visit twice, and every year they revamp those standards and kind of try to lift it. So you can kind of see what the point is here, is they keep trying to lift all the clubs and using that to make the standard of soccer better. It is a rapidly growing, it's very, very respected. I mean, 39 clubs in Canada have been picked, and 23 of them are from Ontario, so it says a lot. I think Canada took a lot of their system from Ontario, so it is a fairly progressive league. The last piece is that point streak concept. So every club in the OPDL, so these are basically the club logos. This is Ontario Soccer's login, and they go in and they can click down and see any of our players. And so all the OPDL players are ranked or evaluated, and Ontario soccer staff and the provincial staff has access to that, and they can kind of continually monitor the progress of players, right? So it is a big benefit. It's actually something that we're trying to see if we can extend it beyond just OPDL, so that Ontario could theoretically see every player and understand how they're evaluated and not just have to stumble upon a player at the park when they happen to be there, but see from us, here's who we right now have, here's how we evaluate them, and then pick their teams that way. So this is currently active, this is part of the OPDL, and it's one of the benefits, I would say, as does Ontario Soccer. So we always do these values things here, and what's the values of Ottawa TFC and what kind of player do we want to be? So very, very often, and it's never made it to paper, but very often the word humility gets thrown around. We're a humble place. But for 4 slides, I'm going to throw that out the window a second. I'm going to explain to you who we are within OPDL. So within those audits, at the end, they show us the results. This is where we ranked this latest assessment. So this just about floored me when they posted this. So they don't give us the benefit of seeing who everyone is, but they show you where you rank. We were, based off of that, asked to present best practices on how OPDL programs are supposed to run, how grassroots are supposed to run, at the president's meeting for all the Ontario clubs, at the GM and technical director meeting for all the clubs. So frankly, Terry, our president, literally was just there now, and she said, she was sitting with the president of Ontario Soccer and says, hey, who's the model club? We want to learn, who can help us with governance, who's that? And the guy starts laughing, he says, it's you guys. He says, it's you guys. I'm sorry to say, if you were hoping to get pushed on, which at the same time is, to me, a little bit terrifying. When you're on the ground, you hear, you're kidding. There's, we're doing our best, we work very hard, and we're boots on the grass types of people. But I say this because you guys only get one run at this. You get one run at this with the kids. Some of you get maybe 2 if you got 2 kids. And time moves fast. There's 3 clubs in the OPDL just in this town. It'll take you 3 years if you just want to get one run at each of them. And that's 3 of your 5 years. And I can tell you categorically that right now, at this moment, if you leave this club, you're going to an inferior program. That's fact. You might go to a club, you just might go to a club that wins a few more games that year, but your coaching, programming, the development your kid gets will be inferior, and I'm telling you that from me. We can have an argument after this. I can buy you a Pepsi or whatever it is that you have in your life, but this is what Ontario Soccer tells us. I can tell it to you. I'm very close friends with all of the clubs in town, and they tell it to us. They'll never tell you, but they tell us, we know that what you're doing is ahead of us, and we're trying to figure out how to do it as well. That's the club you're in right now. Just this year, we've had 16 of our players went through the provincial screening process. 5 represented Team Ontario. We only have 4 teams at the OPDL right now. They graduate in 1 year at a time. So when we started with just 13s, now we're with 13s, 14s, and then we move on. So we're very early in the process still. So these are very high numbers for us. We've had 2 players move on through our club to the Rex program, which is the national team. They move on into a full-time training program with the national team. They unfortunately leave our club at that point, but for good reason. On the boys' side, we have very good connections with European Academy. So we've had 8 players go this season. 4 are there right now. 1 has actually signed a contract with Dynamo, which is our old club in Czech Republic. And we've had 20 go to the TFC Academy. So the TFC part of it is a little bit more thanks to the affiliation with TFC. I'll give you a little bit on this. On the girls' side, if you go through OPDL and you get selected into provincial screening and all this, then the best place that the player can land is in that Rex national team program. That's kind of the dream. On the boys' side, I was asking them, I was like, so what happens? Imagine we have this great player and blah, blah. Says, well, if he gets all the way up and we still think he's the best, then we send him to TFC. So it was actually one of the things that convinced me that the TFC move is a very good idea, because now we regularly not only have TFC come to our OPDL programs and coach, watch, they come 3 times a year and work with the coaches, work with the kids, but we also get to twice annually basically send the players that they've evaluated or through our point streak system have been selected to be there. So there's basically a lot to be had of this, right? So that's the club you're sitting in. Now, I'll spend a little bit of time explaining to you the program. Bear with me. I recently showed snippets of this to our board of directors, and I realized they were like, what? We do all this? I was like, wait a second, you guys don't know that? So I thought maybe it would be worth the 5-10 minutes to show you guys what it is that our Elite Academy does, which is the OPDL program, and so you can assess, at least have a full picture. So 13s to 18s, our Elite Academy is our highest tier program. It's the program that plays in the OPDL. It's an annual program. They train 5 days a week, plus through some portions of the season they actually have a 6th session of strength and conditioning, either in the mornings or the evenings. It is, so it's 5 days a week. It's built, the fancy word periodized just means that because it's annually built, the training program is periodized in order to have the athlete peak when it's time to play. So they load and train in a certain way so that the body is most prepared to execute come May when the actual season is running. Throughout the off season and preseason, we play friendly games and tournaments, and then the OPDL actual league starts in April to September. You guys have probably already seen this. Our whole club runs on this 4-corner player development model. The Elite Academy just kind of, because the athletes are more serious and we have more time with them, we can kind of extrapolate those pieces and dive a little bit more into them. So I'm going to show you those. So technically, we have our season plan. So this is our calendar. I've cut it in half. I mean, it keeps going. This is all where we are. You know, this shows Millennium, then we get on the turf, then we're in the dome, and we have some time off. So this is the calendar. It shows you all your player testing, parent meeting, team bonding, all kinds of things like that. And the part that we keep visiting over and over is here, which is our technical plan. So you don't need to be able to read this, but this is basically, again, your physical, technical, tactical, and mental pieces, and what it is that we're trying to accomplish in that phase. So there's 6-week phases, and every coach is working that way. As you can see, they're split into 5, day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that every day of the week has a specific focus within a broad focus within the annual plan. This is always subject to change at the end of the season when we reevaluate, but this season we were roughly sticking to this type of a block, so the kids even would know roughly what the theme is on each day within the block. Fridays being competition day, well, you can read those for yourselves. So that's the microcycle. I mainly put that under the technical piece. So technically, I mean, they're on the ball every day. Part of the practice every day is technical. And then in the preseason portion, so before we get into the April, the OPDL season, we actually have one day that's dedicated to individual station work on literally technical. So they'll work on bending the ball with both feet, on heading, bicycle kicks, dribbling, passing, through balls, shots, for one day a week over and over during the off season. So that's the technical corner. On the physical corner, we've partnered with Performance Sport Therapy, which is kind of a full service group that does literally, you know, for everything from sports medicine to physio to chiro to recovery to everything along those lines. Their trainers work with our players. This year it was 4 times a week, so they're there. Even if it's just running a warm-up, sometimes it would be a bigger session, sometimes a smaller one. And basically they look at, after the physical piece, they look at strength conditioning, mobility, and injury prevention. One of the coolest parts, in my opinion, was the injury prevention piece. So these are people that are literally just trained in body, like human mechanics and how the body's supposed to move for high performance athletes. And they were spotting future injuries for us. You know, they were saying, look at this player, he's got this imbalance, he needs to start doing these exercises. One of the things that was developed that's shared with just the staff coaches is they would start to flag. So they would have pictures of all the players, and they would start to flag any of those problems. So they would have, you know, color-coded. Yellow would mean he's got some sort of an imbalance, just keep an eye on it, he's supposed to warm up with these exercises. Orange would mean that he can't do full training, he can only do some things. Eventually it would become green, saying congratulations, he's back to go. And with consent, this was then also shared with the sports medicine and the physio, so it would just all be connected. So the physio would see, what's the issue? Oh, okay, let me see it. And then he would give us back the notes too, saying he shouldn't be training for 2 weeks, or he's fine, or whatever it is. And it's just like amazing, you know, at the youth level, incredible, and really, really helps. I mean, I think you can all appreciate how awesome that is. We were actually fortunate enough through Ottawa U to have access this season to the GPS trackers. So we had one full team's worth. They would be given these trackers in training and in games. These would rotate because we only had one team. And it basically tracks the player's movement in training and in a game, and it shows you everything. How far they ran, how fast they ran, how hard they worked, how many tackles they were in. And they would have access to it, and we would, and it just became this, and at first I thought, okay, well, it's kind of gimmicky, but let's try it. But it was interesting how players could see, you know, you would ask them, how hard do you think you worked that practice? No, I worked hard. And then you show it, and you say, well, this shows that. And it's just an eye-opener. It wasn't negative. They would just be like, oh, okay, I actually see that. I could work harder, you know, and there's just no hiding behind the numbers. And you would steadily see an increase. You know, it's interesting what a piece of technology like that can do. I mean, you can have a coach 5 years telling you, come on, work harder. But this thinking piece of technology just shows it. There's no hiding. Listen, you ran a little bit less than average on your team, you know. So anyways, interesting piece, again, for the physical to show you, like, this is one of the teams. Yellow means it was adequate. So that game, whatever that team was, some of these are sometimes players who were subbed, so they didn't play the full. And then, yeah, just allows you to see that. On the tactical piece, so we have all the home games are filmed, and the players get access to all their games. They're done from the iPod, so they have access to that. Mainly, it's great for tactical review at the young ages for you guys, and to help teach that. So we use it for team tactical sessions as well as individual ones. We use it for feedback as well. If a player is really stuck on something, we can work through pieces tactically with them. But it slowly becomes great for recruiting and players that obviously want to eventually get onto university and need to do these highlight tapes. Then you build a good database of tons of games of yourself that you can start to snip down and be ready for that phase when 15, 16 rolls around. So this is basically our classroom at the clubhouse. This summer we were fortunate enough to have the Ottawa U GG's video coach. So they were the national champions, and in the summer they're not doing anything, so he came in and worked. He's very, very good at just that, at analyzing video and showing teams where the errors were, and so it was kind of nice to have him there. I don't know if this will work. You know what, I'll show you. So watch the kinds of stuff they do. So this is a video that they would be doing with the kids, right? So they build out, and it'll pause and say, you should actually be positioned here because of this reason. Plays on, and again, he'll talk to this player should move there, that player should move there, and then they build out, right? So these video coaches then are able to really help the players understand, oh yeah, those 10 meters make a difference, and blah, blah, blah. We don't have to watch all of that. On the social mental piece, we've started this year, we're calling it Captain's Roundtable. So at the young ages, we've kind of come full circle to where we just rotate the players through this roundtable. What it is a meeting of the senior leaders in this program, and they sit once a month, and they go through either agenda items they have or agenda items we have as a staff. Like we'll say, listen, we noticed that the training's not up to snuff, or that the equipment's not getting cleaned, or that we have a tournament coming up, we need help, things like that. And these youth get together just on their own, and they'll come up with other ideas to fix it and whatnot. So they end up being like a liaison between the massive players, the staff, and all that stuff, and obviously a great leadership piece too. For the younger ones, what we're doing is just kind of exposing them so that they come two at a time and understand what it's about, understand why is this 17-year-old leader explaining to our team, hey, we need to clean up better, or whatever it might be. The idea being that they slowly build up into becoming those leaders themselves. We do have a sports psychology component as well. That's going to be extending this year also because it's very popular. I didn't even myself expect how much it would catch on. So we had the Ottawa Youth Sports Psych come in and just do sports psychology. Just do a session on goal setting or a session on mental prep, visualization, things like that. Sometimes we'd have just motivational speakers, like we had Jamar from the Fury come in and speak, or just various types of people to try to address that side of things. The university prep is probably not as pertinent to you guys, but we do have a fairly robust effort to help players get on into university. To be honest, OPDL is making that a big objective of theirs too. I think they're just, like I said, the oldest age group is just 17 now, so they're maturing as a league as well. And I think a big part of their mandate is to help players get on into university. We have a game day protocol, so kind of an outline of how a player should look after their body and prepare in the 24 hours leading up to a game, which includes what they should be doing, what they should be thinking about eating. This is kind of like a one-pager that they have that they should be ticking the boxes. Did I do this? Did I sleep enough? Did I stretch? Did I drink X amount? Did I do that? So these are things we help them with. Last piece is the game prep. So once the players, assuming they've done all that protocol, which is anybody's guess, they come to home games beforehand. When they come into the clubhouse, we'll just have music playing, and they'll kind of hang out a little bit ahead of time. We'll try to put some like inspiring quotes or something that leads to what we've been working on. And then they will go through, basically we'll have prepared, this is the matchup, and we go through all the tactical pieces. So first we look at the opponent, we'll click on, each one of these that you click on can open to, oh, that didn't work, sorry. It didn't work because I pasted it out of the actual presentation. But basically you can click into this and it'll show you how the other team plays, how we're going to play them, and then we also have the same thing for ourselves. So it'll show the lineup our team has, any objectives we have in the game, sometimes a piece of video showing, okay, these are the ways we want to play, things like that. And then from there they warm up, get on the field, and go from there. Just on the administrative side, so some of the questions we get. So from a timeline perspective, it's annual. So we generally will start tryouts in September, similar to like you're used to, and we'll start to form teams in October. Although it is an ongoing, like if good players come along, of course we always have time for good players who want to be part of the program. OPDL does require players to sign on for a full year though, so when's that deadline? It's like in February. After February, it's like a mutual commitment made to one another. They can't move clubs and we can't just boot them either. So nothing too different from what you're used to. We start in October. We have 3 formal breaks, the longest one being in December, and then 2 sets of 2-week breaks in March and August. In terms of costs, the budgets, they're actually still just being approved by the board now, but I don't think that will move personally. Uniforms aren't included. They're the same as what you'd have, possibly save for white shorts if you don't have them. And travel's not included simply because each team massages that in their own way. Some teams are adamant that they want to have a bus and send the kids on the bus and do that. Other teams want to travel, and so it's done a little bit on an ad hoc basis for that one. I think this is the part of the video that I'm going to edit, but you can audit me on this one. There's 2 other programs like this in town that play OPDL. The less expensive of them last year was $5,200. They train 3 times a week. So, and I said this when we were doing best practices in Ontario. I said, listen guys, 20 years ago, I played for Hornets. And I trained 3 times a week and played a game. And I had a coach who was working on a license So that's the level of a lot of these clubs, and I say that with respect, but you can audit all you want at the clubs, but if players are training 3 times a week, which very often means 2, we have actually statistically found that no matter what the session number we set, the actual attendance tends to be on average 1 less than that. So 3 becomes 2, 4 becomes 3, 5 becomes 4. This is the standard. I don't say this to put anyone down or to boost us. I just say it to bring perspective, because this is a lot of money. I don't think that's lost on anybody. But I do want you to understand where it sits in relation. And probably you can imagine that Toronto clubs are substantially higher than that, but that's a different city, right? So that's in regards to cost. I will say, sorry, on that, in the that same section where there's the parent handbook, the OPDL actually has a fairly robust scholarship program. It's mainly driven by you, like by the parents, and it is needs-based. So there's an application process that assesses incomes and stuff like that. But it is worth looking at and trying, because they give out a lot of money every year to help out. And the club actually has some programs with that too. So we have, the way we've done it recently, which has worked well in the past 2 years, we've asked players to apply for Jumpstart, because they have their own way of proving the needs thing. And if you successfully are approved for that, not only proves that the needs are there, but it also actually brings some money back to the club, and then it allows the board to assess the needs and help. So what I will say is, in my time here, we've never had a player not be able to play in this just because of finances, unless they just disappeared into the night and assumed it can't happen. So don't be that person. If everything here is awesome, your kid loves it, we really want to do it and all that, don't just disappear assuming that it's not possible. It's worth reaching out to whoever it is you feel most comfortable with, and we will work through it. Yeah? No. So I'll have Jesse speak to the bus a little bit, but the bus is separate, simply again because it's all over the map in terms of how people resolve their scenarios. So we basically split it out. The travel and games, I just pulled this off the website. Can you confirm that this is accurate, Vlad? Raz?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. For this year, absolutely. You had 20 games.
20? Okay, for some reason the website, so the games, I thought it was 22, at 20 games. This is another myth buster, isn't it? Like, you always hear they traveled 25 times to Toronto. They made 4 trips, one team made 5 to Toronto. Those are, almost all of them are day trips, so it's like, it's a 2 o'clock game, so you leave in the morning and come back late at night. It kills you one day, but it's 4 times a season. So if you hear people saying, oh, this is a nightmare, you got to travel to Turkey 10 times a year, it's actually not true. It's 4 or 5 trips. Frankly, some regional teams end up doing more than that because they hunt down every tournament they can find and go further. So that's actually getting better and better. 3-4 years ago, that was 8. So
what would be the other localities?
What's that?
What would be the other localities?
So we play a lot of home games. We have, obviously, the 2 local teams are in our group as well. So you'll play twice them, but it's local, and you'll play them twice at home, play everybody else at home, and then they do central venues. So a lot of times they'll do games in Kingston maybe. But even that, I only saw most teams do it once. Is that true? Twice.
Venues are located over here in Ottawa. There's also 2.
Yeah, so they do what's called central venues. Is like they'll have every team in an age group plays in one place, and they'll rotate that around. So they might have one here, one in Toronto, one in Kingston. Those are the 3 places. It'll either be Toronto, Kingston, or Ottawa. Yeah. But if anything, this 4, you can add 1 Kingston trip to that, possibly 2. Is that true? You did 2? 2? Did you do 2?
And 1.
1. So 1 or 2. Sorry.
Kingston's like going to Canada anyways.
Kingston's like going to Canada. Do you want me to talk to this? You want to talk?
Yeah, I can talk. No problem.
Jesse, come up and talk. Jesse's our director of operations, and he's very versed in this side of things. So.
Okay, so the transportation side of things, we work with a bus company. We work with actually 2, Bradley bus lines and Roxborough bus lines. Now we've done this for 3, maybe 4 years now, and every year we try to get better and better at basically having a solid base of what schools that players attend that actually sign up for the bus. So we've limited down to a few schools. Most of them is in the East End, and that's simply due to the fact that these are the kids that sign up for the bus. So it's schools like Murray-Bleu, Garneau, Beatrice Delage, Giselle Lalonde, St. Pete's, St. Matt's, Garneau. Those are the schools that I can confirm that for sure we will be running the bus for. If there turns out to be another school in the area where we have maybe 3, 4, 5 players that's going to be going, then we can look at that. But going into this year, I can confirm that these schools will have a bus. Usually what we have is we have players from outside areas that maybe live more central or just east, like Colonel Bay or something like that, that may not have transportation. And what we found is a lot of these players find a way to get there through the OC Transpo, because some of the OC Transpo actually comes up to Millennium, or they carpool. So what we do is we might have maybe coaches that are coming from downtown from work to the session, or someone come in. That person would then pick the players up, drive them. Obviously, it's not free, and they would get them to soccer. But in terms of transportation, you're looking at these schools that actually we provide the bus for. So I don't know if anyone has any questions to that. I know I spoke to a gentleman regarding a player that's going to be going to a school in more central. And obviously, we're always looking to fix those minor things, but I could say based on historic facts and based on who signed up for the bus, it's these schools that we service. I don't know if anyone has any questions to that.
Cost for that would be broken between those actually taking the bus and receiving it?
Yeah, so technically the cost for the bus in the past has been around $800 or so bucks for the full year, if it's just for the half year. So we usually have a bus that takes the kids to either Millennium or to the Beerbrook, the Dome on Beerbrook, the Gloucester Dome there. So it's either half a year that you're paying for if you only need the bus there, or a full year if you need it to Millennium. So that's the cost. I don't know the cost this year. Obviously, prices go up. With the bus
Won't change it much though. It'll be right.
So around that. So that's around what the bus. Anyways, if you have any questions for the transportation after this, you could always come see me and I can talk to you guys more about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of debates on this with people, and I actually think this is something that's very strong about the program, that it services a number of schools. And I actually think it's stronger than having one school that does the sports program, because obviously I think we all believe in academics being a priority, and being where we are, there's French, English, Catholic, public, private, all this, and so it allows the students to still pick the academic avenue that they want to take, yet still be in a soccer program that's on professional standards, that's like an academy in Europe. So yes, it would be really cozy if it was like right at the one school, but I think what you do is you end up losing a lot of your talented players, because I think school comes first for just about everybody. So that's the reason we're going in that route. But definitely, we're going to be sending out a survey like we do always. It'll be just, how was your summer, how was the programs? But in your categories, it will include some of these questions like, will you be interested in participating in OPDL? If so, what school or schools are you looking at doing? So we try to do our homework ahead of time, so that if there's massive shifts to be made, we can make them, right? It's actually been a very interesting project, like that these school bus companies work with us and they really try their best to make the best schedule possible. So, yeah, that's it for the formal piece. Are there any public questions?
I have a question. I'm just trying to envision how it's 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. So I'm just trying to, it's school ends, not all the times are the same for certain schools for ending.
Mm-hmm.
How long would the practices be, and how does it work? Do do they get dropped off back at the school, or are they?
So the
how-
question is, with schools ending differently, and how's the training format, and did they get dropped off afterwards? So training's always at 4 to 5:30. There's kids who get there as early as like 3:10, because some of the schools end early. The bus picks them up and they get there. So I mean, there's a number of things they do. Some of them do their homework. They come into the clubhouse and do their homework. Others, we always tend to set up stretching stuff, strengthening stuff, so they can do extra work beforehand or grab some balls. And they train 4 to 5:30 every time. The formal practice is 4 to 5:30. The coaching staff gets there though early to set up, so that there is supervision there early as well. Even the dome, when we're in the dome, it gets opened early for us, and the kids go in the dome and never get set up. Like I said, a lot of times you see them literally doing a bit of homework or doing something like that. At the end, 5:30, it's like any other practice. They get picked up by parents, or yeah, so that's the end of the day. So the kind of the idea is, and this has actually proven to be true, is that your day is every day done at 5:30, and you have the rest of the evening for yourself. So even though the training load is actually higher than anybody else in the province, the lifestyle is actually more normal because they have dinner every day with their families. Some of them have taken up house league, other sports, taken up like house league basketball because they can do it. So from what you're used to, you might actually find it's a little bit of a relief once you figure it out, because you no longer have that mad scramble to get home, drive them somewhere for 6, get home at 8. You know that when you get home at 5:45 or 6, that's the day and you're done. So good. Any other questions? Yes.
For a youth team, there is an option only either to go to OPDL or to competitive, or?
Yeah, so the question is there only options for OPDL or competitive? So basically, since we've done the OPDL, it's actually augmented the competitive program as well. So obviously the OPDL program is 5-6 times a week, and it's quite a bit more robust. Below that, we always have a regional team, competitive team, which trains 2 or 3 times a week like a competitive team would and play. So program like that would be, our dream as a club is to make it stronger than like a Hornets would be. Like, so Hornets top program would be 2 to 3 times, and so we're trying, you would compare those two. So those are the options. Then there's usually a team even below that, and then there's the recreation. So those are the steps. Just to complete the thought, the evaluations for both are done at the same time. So, it might be mutual. We might bug you and say, hey, come up, you look very good. Or you might decide, oh, it's too much. So yes.
Those evaluations come in September?
Yeah, so probably in the next couple of weeks, you'll obviously get bombed, but registration will open up. You'll register like any other year, indicating that you're interested in trying out for the competitive programs. Come to that, and then they're usually held through September. Just like any other one, we'll hold like open events. Just come out and see, and then we'll invite players into training from there and see how they fit into the group and build it that way. Yeah.
When you talk about that program, is that run by you guys?
Yeah. So OPDL program, he's asking why they call it OPDL program. Is that kind of the question? So if you listen to Ontario, they'll always say it's a program. The reason they say that is because they're trying to shift people's thinking to understand that what's actually important is the program, is how much you train, in what conditions, with what coaches, with what kind of surrounding support. So everything I just mentioned there. And what OPDL tries to do is set standards that everyone in OPDL has to hit, so that as a parent, well, I'm gonna at least get the 3 sessions a week, I'm at least gonna get a qualified coach, I'm at least gonna get 20 games. So that's why they call it a program, even though to us, it's the league. We run the team and the program, and then we go play in the league. So I don't know if that helps explain.
Yeah, but because you just mentioned that we're both together and we can. So what are the percentage of the players that will get OPDL?
Oh, so basically, our top team still remains the academy. In the club, for some reason, the name's become Elite Academy from 13 and up. So you guys have primarily played in the academy from 9 to 12. At 13 to 18, We call it Elite Academy because it's a very obvious step up from the U12 Academy. But that top team at U13, which forms our academy team, that team plays in OPDL. The team below that would be designated a competitive team in our club, and they would play at the regional level, playing all the other clubs in town and doing that. Does that answer a bit? So typical team carries 18 players. Sometimes we've been up to even like 20 provisional, right? So they do a good job with, like, if there's players who are close and want to be there, they'll let them train, be in the program, but play their games with regional until they develop into being full-time. Or so trying to balance getting players the minutes to play and keep playing and enjoying it, but also not being left behind if they don't want to be, if they still want to train and they're close.
So all of this, like the bosses and all that, it's only applied to all those that gotta be going.
Yeah, so the Elite Academy, that's everything I've talked about is in our Elite Academy from 13 to 18, and those are the teams that play in the OPDL League. Anything below that, it's far more of a, club level program, what maybe we were used to. Training 3 times a week. It's still quality, still good facilities, but it won't have all of that in it. Yeah, it won't be that expensive either. How closely, or if at all, do we follow the academic results of players? I mean, once they start getting to the recruiting ages, like right now that means 15 and up, we have profiles for the players, and we use an outsourced software that allows university coaches to search the players if they go to a showcase or vice versa, and part of that requires them to put their scores, their grades. So that would be the closest thing to formal tracking of grades. With that said, I mean, very often, parents will come to us and say, listen, the player's struggling in school, here's the results, and then we'll work together because it's obviously priority. Yeah, school. Yes?
Back to the tryouts in September. So is it like one open call for like one weekend, and then everything else after that is invitational?
So for the tryouts question about how it's run, so typically we run 3 weekends. So we'll run 3 weekends of open tryout, anybody can come, and to be honest, we use that to sort out everybody. So we'll try to sort out our OPDL team, our academy and all that. But because the Elite Academy runs year round, the guys we have are already training, the 13, so we take advantage of that and slide in players who seem to be close and test them. Yeah, so if you're sitting here, to be honest, we know most of the players, so it's not going to be a make or break weekend, I can tell you that.
I guess the idea is like past bonus at academy, stay home. So, but now at academy, go.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't know the answer to that detail yet. The question was whether, sometimes we left the academy kids at home to do that, and if we're going to do that this time around. And we actually haven't gotten into that specific detail. It's possible that it might go either way. Yes? Where are the practices, the question? So all of the outdoor ones are at Millennium. All of the indoor ones, so from November to March, are in the Bearbrook Dome, the Superdome there at Gloucester.
Are there any exhibition games set up throughout the winter?
Yes, so during the winter, all the teams play in exhibition games. I mean, we try to set up as many as we can. Usually we're hitting about definitely 2 a month. Ideally, we try to hit 3 a month, full field games. So we get away from the small-sided stuff, and we try to already be preparing for full field games. Good? All right, so we're hanging out. We're in no rush, so if you have other questions, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, thank you for coming, and have a nice weekend. Yes?